The Lake Erie Bill of Rights, if passed by Toledo voters, will have a significant impact on small businesses, government agencies, and yes, farms all throughout the Lake Erie watershed. How can you protect yourself and your farm should those consequences come down the line? I'm Ty Higgins, Director of Media Relations with the Ohio Farm Bureau, along with our media counsel, Leah Curtis. Leah is one of the sharpest legal minds in all of the state, and I have to imagine you used every single morsel of that knowledge you have to kind of decipher what this Lake Erie Bill of Rights is all about, because if it's anything, Leah, it's confusing.
It is. I told someone this morning that, they said, I don't really understand it. And I said, well, I went to law school for 3 years and I've been a lawyer for almost 9. And I would say there are a lot of pieces of it that, I can't really make sense of as well. We're going to do our best to work through it for all of our farmers and, work on what we can do to try to prevent this from causing a big impact on our industry.
To simplify things, we're calling the Lake Erie Bill of Rights LEBOR, and we've been talking about it now for a couple of weeks, but some people, Leah, just now finding out about what LEBOR is all about. Tell us about this ballot measure. What should we know about it?
Yes, so it is an amendment to the Toledo City Charter, and what it does is it gives the lake the right to exist, flourish, and naturally evolve, and also gives citizens of Toledo the right to a healthy and clean environment. It doesn't define what those things mean, but just does provide those rights, and that any citizen of Toledo or the city can enforce those rights. So essentially, someone can go into court and enforce rights for Lake Erie on Lake Erie's behalf, giving Lake Erie standing in that court.
It all sounds like butterflies and unicorns and all these happy things about the lake, but if this does pass, it could mean some really serious consequences for, as I mentioned, small businesses and farms and government agencies. So we didn't know it was certain this was going to be on the ballot. Now it is. Is there any certainty about what happens if it does pass? Are we going to see lawsuits for sure?
Because the measure says that it allows for these lawsuits against both businesses and governments, we can never say for sure, but certainly that is the threat. And it really can be any citizen in Toledo. So while, one person might say, oh, I'm not planning to, that doesn't mean somebody else wouldn't. So it really is, it's a huge threat. And even if you get to the end of the day and you win that lawsuit, it takes a lot of money to get to that end of the day. So any lawsuit is one that you probably want to avoid because it's just always an expensive undertaking.
Who's most at risk for litigation?
At this point, it is limited to businesses and governments. I think that agriculture's attention to water quality is going to, of course, make it a target. That is what we have heard through some interviews and discussions about this. So I think agriculture certainly is a big target, but really any industry in the Toledo area is probably a target on the list. And even the governments could be. The city of Toledo itself could be, other townships, county governments, anyone that has any impact on the lake, according to someone else, could be subject to a lawsuit.
So we have a lot of members and a lot of landowners watching this that are hearing what you're saying and thinking, oh man, what if this happens to me? So how can our members and landowners throughout the Lake Erie watershed protect themselves from LEBOR fallouts?
So the first thing that we're suggesting is that everyone should consider getting enrolled in an agricultural district. And that agricultural district program provides a defense in certain nuisance lawsuits. Now, I want to be clear that we don't know how these lawsuits will be written. We don't know how they'll be filed. So there's a chance that this defense might not apply. But if there's any chance it will, we want to make sure everybody has that opportunity, and that defense can be used if necessary.
What does that ag district enrollment process look like, and how much time does it take? Are we going to be able to maneuver ourselves to get in a good position before the LEBOR vote on February 26th?
Sure. So the deadline to enroll in an ag district is actually March 1st, and the vote is on February 26th, so we're kind of lining up right there. It shouldn't take very long. It is a form that you fill out. Your county auditor will have the form for you. If you do not live inside of a city, you just fill it out and give it to the auditor. It's going to be similar to your CAUV form. Information about your farm and what you do on it and what types of agriculture you're doing. If you live in a city, there is a slightly longer process because the city has to also approve that ag district application, and so you may need to work with your city council a little bit on that. And if anyone has questions about that as a Farm Bureau member, we're certainly happy to help walk through that kind of different process if you live in the city.
Ag district's not just a great idea for LEBOR and what may happen after the February 26th vote, really a good idea for a lot more other issues that may come down the line. What else can ag districts help us with?
Yeah, there's actually two big benefits that people kind of don't realize aside from the nuisance defense. One is that the Ag District will defer any assessments on sewer, water, and electric that might be charged to your property. So while you would pay the assessment on the acre your house is on, any of your fields, your additional vacant land that you're farming, you wouldn't have assessments on that until you came out of the Ag District. So that can save you a lot of money if a new sewer line or water line comes in. And then the third one is an eminent domain review procedure. So if 10 acres or 10% of your land, whichever's greater, is threatened by eminent domain, there's an additional review that the Department of Agriculture has to go through before that land can be taken. And it can slow and even stop the process of eminent domain in certain circumstances.
Leah's busy enough as it is, but this has really taken over her office and her part of OFBF here for the past couple of weeks, and we have some great information online. If you have any more questions, it's ofbf.org/LEBOR. That's ofbf.org/LEBOR.